Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third webinar series that we've been offering in the month of April since we've been hit with this COVID incident. So we really appreciate everybody who's joined us today. Some of you may have joined us for some of the other ones. This might be the first one. Just a couple little things that I want to make sure that we cover as we get into the webinar. First is usage of some of the tools. We are going to be using the chat function again today. So if you'll notice, you have the opportunity to give us some feedback. We're going to ask some questions, and we'd really love you to participate in that as we go through the webinar today. So that chat function is there for you and available. So Sandler Training, for those of you who know us, this is, again, a repeat. Obviously, you know who Sandler Training is, what we do, what we're about. For those of you who this is your first webinar that you've been on, first time that you've joined us, who is Sandler? Well, Sandler is a worldwide training organization that we're a part of. My name's Chad Bandman. I own the Edmonton region for Sandler Training. Work with a lot of people in this area to help them develop their sales teams, develop structures and processes so that they're better at what they do, playbooks, plans, kind of all the things they need as an organization to experience growth in their world. And we all know that growth is critical, whether that's revenue growth, profit margin growth, or people growth, right? Skill growth. We're all about helping people achieve the best version of themselves, and that's why we're here. So Sandler, we've been around a long time doing that. This slide will probably also look a little bit familiar. For those of you who've been on before, it's what are you going to learn today? What can you really get out of this? So back to the adult learning model. Number one is some awareness. Hopefully there's some things that you become aware of today as we go through the webinar. There's maybe an idea, a behavior, a technique, a mindset, something that you can take away that's going to add value, right? So that's key number one. Number two is knowledge, right? So, introduce you to some ideas. Maybe it's a specific kind of question that you could be asking during this time. Maybe it's a specific way of approaching your client base. We're going to go through that today. So hopefully you get some of that. Of course, there's the other two, skill and mastery. You're going to develop this as part of your habits. You got to practice it. You got to put it into your regular routine. It's got to be something you do on a regular basis to become a habit, right? And that's on you to kind of move that forward as you exit this webinar and kind of on your own in your house, wherever you're working from. That's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to really push 3 and 4, and so that you make it part of your habits. We already talked about participation, chat functions. We will talk about some special offers at the end as well. So stay on the call. We're going to talk about a few things that Sandler is offering that can help you in your world, make you a better version of yourself. So we'll be talking about that in a little more detail at the end. Right? We're still in the middle of a crisis. Things are still happening. Things are still going on. Depending where we are in that process, some of you might have gone from grieving, you've been grieving the change in your world. You're grieving how things have all shifted for you, or maybe you're grieving about the fact that your pipeline is emptied out. But, now you've maybe moved past that, right? I know it took me a little bit to go from that emotion of why can't things have stayed the same to, well, things aren't the same. I've accepted that. And now what am I going to do differently as a result? So we know that we don't have an end in mind. We don't know where this thing's going to go. We don't know how long it's going to go. You watch the news, you probably can get 15 different versions of when and how this thing will all play out. None of it's in our control. All we have is ourselves and what we're going to do during this time, which is a little bit crazy. The key thing I want you to be thinking of in your world as we go through this webinar together is momentum. Right? When you think about momentum, I want you to think about when you were a little kid, right? You're on your bike. I don't know, the first time maybe you got a bike with gears. And let's say you had it in the wrong gear, right? You're at a dead stop. You got on your bike and you're going to get going, but you have the gear ratio wrong, right? You're in the high gear, right? The one that creates the most speed, but it's really hard to get moving, right? You're like just pushing on those pedals and you haven't figured out that you got the gears in the wrong spot and it's really difficult to get going. So what's happened, right? We had momentum. We were maybe in that high gear. Things were moving, right? This was a great quarter for us. We were flying down the track. We had high speed. Boom, everything stops. We're working from home. Our pipelines are drying up, right? We lose all the momentum. So the question now is, how do we recreate momentum, and what do we got to do to get that wheel spinning again in order for us to have some future success or some version of success? And at the end of the day, we're all going to need to get back to selling. And I'm starting to see that already in my world. I'm starting to see people kind of going through, actual business decisions, because now they've gone through the crisis phase. Now they're in the let's move forward phase. So we got to be careful that we're not missing out on our momentum, what's really going to work. So I like to start off with the positive. What's working out there? I know some people out there, frankly, they're doing some stuff. So we've got the chat feature. I want you to jump in on this and share some of the chats that's actually working. Like, what have you been doing out there in sales that's actually made a difference for you? So we're 1 month in, right? I already said people are getting used to it. Business is getting done. One thing that's working in our world is we've shifted some of our focus, right? We're obviously not prospecting people who are heavily impacted by this crisis. So we had some opportunities in the hotel industry world. Honestly, not going there right now. Nothing's happening. Where have we shifted? We went through our pipeline and looked for IT companies associated with healthcare, companies that are into AI and machine learning, all that kind of stuff. We've shifted our focus, and that's leading to new and different discussions. So it's starting to get some traction again with people wanting to talk to us. So what I hear was working. Some people shared. People like to hear about normalcy, right? Empathetic. Reassuring clients is working. So getting in touch with your clients is working. The opportunity to learn is working, right? I see that. Flexibility. Somebody shared that. That's working. So there's a lot of things that we can be doing. But don't forget to focus on what is working. I know right now, sometimes we get a little bit in the negative side, and that can be your challenge. So how's your momentum? Well, that's a key question, right? Do you feel like you have any momentum in your world today? In other words, you know what? Everything's kind of been, the basket was shifted up and down. We had a couple of weeks of, oh my God, what's going on? We don't even know. And well, now I think we're past that. So do we have any momentum? So if you had a 10-speed bike, and 10 would be you're in top gear, you're flying down that track, you have lots of energy, you might be a 10. You're a 1 if you're still trying to maybe figure out what's going on. I don't know what to do. I don't even know what I can do. I'm just sitting here waiting for people to tell me what to do. I want you to take a second, just drop a number in the chat box. I see a 5. Some people, and there might be a couple others out there. Just write down your numbers. I see some 4s, 6s, 4s. Okay, a lot of middle of the road stuff, 6s and 5s. I see some lower ones. All right, so we're all over the map. I don't see any 10s. I don't see any 1s. But we might have to think about, how do we create this momentum? So I want you to keep that number in mind for yourself toward the end here, and ask yourself, what can I be doing that's going to impact that number? If I'm a 3, how do I get that to a 5? If I'm a 6, how do I get that to an 8? Because momentum, or personal momentum, is going to be critical if we're going to have long-term success. So we talk a lot about the Sandler success triangles. We talk a lot about attitude. We talk a lot about behavior. All of this, and technique, all of this is to help you create momentum in your world. And we're going to drop into each one of these again today, just to get a little more information around how can we create momentum in each one of these categories. I was listening to somebody else on one of my other talks, and they were talking about, do you believe in statistics, or do you have faith in statistics, or are you all about calculus? So what does that mean? So statistics say nobody's buying, right? That's what statistics say. They say the economy's dropped off. We're going to be in the worst depression ever. Everything's shrinking. That's statistics, right? That is truth. On the other side, calculus. What's calculus mean? Means there is a solution. I just haven't figured it out yet. So where are you putting your faith in? Are you putting your faith in statistics, or are you putting your faith in calculus? I just haven't figured out how to solve this problem yet. So that's the question I want you to ask yourself as we go through some of these slides. So let's talk about the importance of attitude, right? We've talked about this on a couple other webinars, but I want to share a little equation with you. Behavior plus technique minus attitude. What does that mean? It means you're going through the motions. So prior to this whole pandemic thing, I saw a lot of this, especially around prospecting. When we ask salespeople to go out there and meet strangers, to try to reach out, to use LinkedIn, like a great little tool to go meet people who could buy your stuff, right, and interact with them, I got a ton of pushback. I got, Chad, that LinkedIn stuff, it doesn't, I'm old school, man. I'm face to face. That doesn't work. It might work for somebody else. It won't work in my world. Or, Chad, you just don't get it. You can't sell my stuff remote. You can't sell over the phone, Mike. We gotta be in the same room, right? That's all mindset. That's all belief, right? So what's happened now is that attitude might be holding you back. That belief system of how people buy your stuff, why they buy it, who's buying it, who's still around, who's still doing business, that could be really limiting you. So if you got some behavior, maybe you're doing stuff, maybe you're reaching out on LinkedIn, maybe you're doing actual phone calls, maybe you are, but you got your mindset is this is never going to work. This is completely pointless. I guarantee you your results will be zero. So don't go through the motions. Now, we got another formula here for you. Attitude plus technique minus behavior. So maybe you fixed your head, right? Your mindset is you're on. You're there. You're ready to go. It's going to work out. You're positive. You're optimistic. And maybe you have some technique, but your behavior is all over the place. You're at home. You're distracted. You're not time blocking time to do anything. You're busy getting, going through Facebook. Maybe you're cleaning your office, right? When you should be doing something else, right? You're just all over the map. So if you don't have good, solid behavior, like discipline, chances are this is one of the worst times for you right now. You're just incredibly distracted. And there's just more distractions, right? Because you're at home, you're by yourself, your routine's been upended. So you got to make sure you're careful to examine your behavior, right? You got to have the right attitude, you got to have the right technique, but you also need some good behavior. So here's the thing that, is also really important. And somebody else shared this on one of my other networking webinars that I was on recently. They find that they got to do 2 times the work to get half the results. And I thought, that's a pretty good perspective, right? Some of us, maybe we've been sitting there kind of in self-pity going, well, I've done my 10 calls today and nobody's picked up, nobody's out there, nobody's responding. All right, I'll just give up. Well, maybe 10 isn't enough. Maybe 20. You got to double. You got to double up, or maybe you got to triple up. Right now is the time to work harder at prospecting than you've ever done in your life. Right now is the time to get in front of your current clients. Now is the time to reach out. Now is the time to show that you're visible more than ever. There's no distractions. You're not on the road. You're not driving your car. You're not, sitting there going down the road for 4 hours with nothing else to do. Right now is the time. If you are willing to outwork your competitor, if you are willing to do more than someone else, I guarantee you when the money starts to flow, that will be noticed. People will recognize that. So don't forget the math. You might need to work twice as hard at the right activity at this point in time. All right, some of you out here, you're going, I got the attitude, I got the behavior, I just got no technique. You know what? You're not converting your opportunities. You're not moving your relationships forward. You're not deepening the connection that you could have with people because you're missing out on some techniques. Man, what a great time to get better at your techniques. No excuses. If you add up all the time that you would spend traveling, if you were somebody who was on the road a lot, think about your commute. Think about how much time you used to spend in your car going to and from work that you have now got back. You might have, let's say it's 30 minutes one way. You've got an hour that you didn't have before that you can now use to get better at something, to get better at your technique, right? You can practice so many things right now, and it's all up to you if you want to do it, but you're going to have to search it. You're going to have to look for it. You're going to have to want to find it. So it's really important that you're thinking about what is your technique level. So we've got attitude, we got technique, and of course we have behavior. So struggling, what are we struggling with? Right? Take a second, type in some things that maybe you are struggling with. For me, man, my struggle was distraction. It was so easy for me to get distracted in my world and just kind of go, whoa, what should I do next, right? And when I'm distracted, frankly, it's not good for me. I don't get enough done. The other problem I had, I spent too much time checking up on COVID-19 updates. Nothing good comes out of that. I've had to really limit my news access, right? That is a problem. Struggling with that, trying not to look at it, just push that down. Some of the other things I see staying focused, micromanaging from a distance, too much negativity from clients. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get some people that you talk to, man, the world has ended and they're depressed. Right now, they're probably seriously, and I'm not even using that term lightly, they might seriously be depressed. Struggling, we're losing some of our best clients. They're actually going out of business. Yeah, that's a huge struggle, right? So here's the thing. We can't control the market forces. None of that's possible. I know some of us are frustrated because we have to we're working from home. But the one thing we have is time, and we can control that. And if you haven't thought about time blocking for yourself, it's a really great little tool to help with some of these issues, right? Creating a plan and then executing a plan takes a lot of that negativity out of your mindset. So, when you look at what your regular routine is, if you would get up at 7:30 to go to work, you still need to get up at 7:30. You need to keep that routine to keep your mindset in the I'm still at work mode. I'm still out there, I'm still pushing versus I'm at home and nothing's happening, right? So making sure that you maintain your routines. Go into your Outlook calendar and block off time to do specific activities and then achieve those, accomplish those things. It's going to make you feel a lot better about where you're at mentally than if you just simply randomly try to do some things. Think about your personal presence right now. That's your current mindset, your confidence, your belief system. And take a second and go, how is my mindset with my personal presence? Am I showing up for work? Do I have a positive attitude? How am I getting my game face on every day to go to work if going to work means going to my living room? What does that mean? Am I getting dressed? Am I, properly, looking like I'm ready to have meetings? Have I created a plan? Am I executing some of those behaviors? So when your personal presence, right, that's that 1 to 10 scale. Give yourself a number from 1 to 10. Rate yourself where you're at. Prospecting. You know what? There's a lot of stuff I've seen out there which is like, oh, you know what? People shouldn't be prospecting at this point in time. They shouldn't be reaching out to new people. Well, if you want to buy into that, you're probably going to be at the back of the line when this whole thing comes to an end or when we get out of this, because frankly, the people that you've been trying to reach might even be home and might even be available and might even be responding to emails. I was having a conversation with one of my clients the other day, asked them, hey, how are things going in your world? What are you seeing? Are you still able to talk to people? And they said, it's a better time than it's ever been. They said, you know what, when I reach out to people, they're responding because they're at home and they're bored and maybe they're not as distracted as they used to be. And they said, when I put a well-crafted subject line together with some email messaging, they said, I'm getting people responding. They're talking to me and it's been awesome. So there is the opportunity there. Now, what I would say is don't be like the traditional salesperson who is, have I got a deal for you? Buy my stuff. That's never going to work. That didn't work before COVID. It's not going to work now. And I think that's what turns some people off. When you reach out without that mindset of how can I help you? And maybe I can and maybe I can't. Some of the other belief systems that you might need to fix out there is just around, is it ethical, right? What's ethical selling? And I thought this was really important to just touch on. So when it comes to prospecting, some people tell you, well, right now that's not ethical. We need to survive. I will say this. I will say it's unethical to sell something to somebody that doesn't help them. There's that concept, hey, that person can sell ice to Eskimos. I always found that incredibly distasteful. Why? What if they don't need it? Why would you sell something to somebody that they don't need? So I think that's just wrong. That's what con artists do. On the other side of it, what if what you do can dramatically impact that other person? What if it can save their business money? What if by switching over to what you do, they would actually be able to preserve some jobs right now? But you're choosing not to reach out. You are choosing not to try to reach out and connect with some of these people. What if that's the case? That is also unethical, because you could be helping people in your business world dramatically, come through this crisis. You might have that opportunity. So it's unethical to sell something people don't need. It's also unethical to not reach out to people who could really benefit from your stuff. So you got to look at it from both ways. How do you feel about your pipeline? Well, you know what? Maybe it's dried up right now and you're a 2 on that list. So then again, it's what are you going to do to reach out and fill that for the future? How do you feel about your performance right now? Are you a 10? Are you a 1? Are you all over the place? So just take a second. You should reflect on that. How do you feel? What are you doing? We've talked a lot about this belief wheel. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, because if you've been on our sessions before, beliefs matter. So if you believe this thing is never going to end, that means you're probably not going to do anything. If you believe that this is the best time for change in your life, change in your habits, to maybe change some of the things you've never done before, now's the time, right? Now's the time to make those changes, because you have no excuses. The whole world's changed. You might as well change with it. And you need to ask yourself about, how are you creating your ideal attitude? So what is your commitment level? What is your commitment level to success? What is your commitment level to yourself, to your family, to the things that you want to achieve on that 1 to 10 scale? If you're completely committed, that means you're probably willing to do whatever it takes. That's desire. Prior to this whole COVID-19 thing, man, I would ask salespeople that question all the time. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? And I would get a lot of like, well, I try. No. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Are you willing to have some people not like your message? Are you willing to have some people reject you? Like, are you willing to stand out and be different? What are you willing to do? Right? And a lot of times right now, I talk about LinkedIn and using social media tools to talk to people and connect. I can't tell you how many salespeople I met who said, like I said, social media is not for me. It's not my thing. I had a conversation with one person that reached out to me not too long ago, and I was just talking about their world, and they said, I was a face-to-face salesperson. I needed to be in the room with somebody. That was my jam. That's how I had success. And when this whole thing changed, I was devastated. I couldn't meet with people. I couldn't get in the room with them. I couldn't share a laugh with them. So I was lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. But then I looked at this social media thing, which I hated. I hated this stuff. I hated being on it. I hated, I just thought it's such a waste of time. And I realized if I was going to keep my sales game going, I needed to pivot. I needed to become part of that world, because that's where people were. And if I wasn't willing to do that, I'm screwed. And I've spent the last 30 days getting better at LinkedIn, understanding how to use it. And because of that, I'm having meetings. I'm actually getting people to connect with me, which they wouldn't have before, because I would have never even used the tool. So are you willing to do whatever it takes? This person was that face-to-face, press the flesh, meet with and interact with person. They said, you know what, I gotta pivot here. I gotta be all in. I'm committed, right? And they did it. So outlook and responsibility. Responsibility. Are you responsible for your own behaviors and actions? I think now is a time where I see a lot of things happening out there where people they kind of say, well, it's not my fault that there's nothing coming in. It's the market. It's what's going on in the world. And there's nothing to be found. And I would just ask yourself if that's really true. Have you uncovered every stone? Have you looked in every crevice, in every corner? Have you done 2 times the work to get half the result? Because there is still stuff happening. It is extremely maybe hard to find in some corners. I'm not saying it's easy. It's tough. But if you're willing and committed and you're going to do whatever it takes, there's a chance that you could find it. So I want to talk quickly about behaviors. So selling behaviors, what has changed for you? What are some of the key things that you've changed in your behaviors as a result in the last 3 weeks, right? Think about that. What is it that you can add, or what have you changed? So take a second, type it in. So when we're talking about time, this is really an important thought. We still have the same amount of time today that we had prior to this COVID thing happening. We still have 24 hours a day. We have gained some time, actually. As I mentioned, we've gained time because we're not driving anywhere. We have gained time. Probably all of us on this webinar have gained an hour somewhere because we're not driving anywhere. We're talking about have we started time blocking? One of the things that I've added to my game in terms of selling behavior is I've really ramped up my touch points. I see somebody here, it says not just chasing the Moby Dicks, right? We're going after some of the smaller stuff. Taking more chances to reach out to people who you thought were unreachable. I love that one because that's one that can be really, really tough. Taking more time on the calls we do get. We have more time now. Maybe we can actually spend a little bit more in some of those calls. I've shared this slide before on some of my other seminars. You might have seen it. I'm going to show it to you again. New behaviors, right? I mean, there's opportunity for some new stuff that we can do. One of the things that I felt was really interesting was the virtual lunch. One of my clients is doing virtual lunches. So maybe in your communities you've seen, hey, let's support our local restaurant, right? Let's support local. There's a lot of that going around on social media. What did I see? I saw a company or a salesperson. They said, I went out, I had the lunch delivered to that person. I set up a time for lunch. They ate, I ate my lunch, and then we did a Zoom call. I thought that was pretty cool. So I've seen a lot of the virtual happy hours where people are getting together and having those times just to unwind and relax with their team. So I've heard of those types of things that weren't there before. New behaviors, man, I bet all of us have been on more webinars in the last 3 weeks than we've probably been in the last 3 years. So new behavior, right? I try to get on a webinar a week where I can learn something or up my game. And I was just on one this morning to help me service my clients better. So I've taken the time to build in that learning component. So also new behaviors. So when you look at your old behaviors, if you look at what you used to do, if you look at the things that used to keep you busy, if you have not added some new behaviors, I'm going to guarantee you have not taken advantage of the time available to you. I mentioned that 30-minute drive time. If you haven't taken that 30-minute drive time that you had and blocked it in to say, in that 30 minutes, I'm going to learn a new skill. It could be a professional skill, whatever that is. You can learn something. It's a great way to energize your mind, right? So you can take the time, new behavior. Personal behaviors. I want to talk a little bit about personal because we're not just people who are working. We are people who are living, right? We're human beings, and there are things that we need to pay attention to. Mind and body. How are you maintaining this thing through behavior? So here's the thing, right? When we're at home, are you building time in to get out and maybe go for a walk around the block to reset your brain, right? If you're going to do some reach outs and calls and your clients and customers are really negative, that can really start to suck your energy and you can start to buy into that negativity. Maybe you need to, 5 minutes every, top of the hour, get in, walk around the block, come back home, right? That could be something you could be doing. Eating and sleeping, these are also critical pieces. I was on a webinar last week with a company that they are a professional healthcare company. It's really interesting. And they talk a lot about leaders as athletes and what they need to do. And one of the things he talked about was sleep. Sleep is one of the most critical things to get during this time. Are you managing your sleep patterns? He talked about the routine before going to bed and the routine for getting up. And one of the things I really loved that he said was, he called it get up and slow instead of get up and go. Building that morning routine that puts you in a positive frame of reference in your mind. Maybe that's reading something uplifting. Maybe that's watching an uplifting video. I've done that. I don't know if anybody has seen John Krasinski's Some Good News Network. I subscribe to that. That's if he has a new video up, I watch that because I want to feel good. I want to get my mindset ready and happier. So I'll watch that video just to manage my mental state. So sleeping, hanging out, getting outside, all things that are important. Some of the other things that you might want to consider is just doing some organizing, right? Cleaning some stuff up, right? That feeling of accomplishment. You're like, oh man, yeah, I actually cleaned something in my house. I cleaned up my files, maybe on your desktop. Maybe you've organized some things. It just feels good to get that done. So don't forget your personal behaviors. I want to talk about your professional behaviors. A lot of us have a territory, whether that's a geographic territory. Some of us might have like a vertical that we play in all the time. Now is a great time to do a little cleanup on the territory. When we look at our territory, let's plan for the future, right? What's happening out there? Who's going to be there at the end? What are some new opportunities in my territory that I haven't taken advantage of? If you've never done a SWOT analysis, you might have heard of it. It's a great thing to do, right? Take some time and do some planning. So SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You could do it from the perspective of yourself and your company, or you could do it from the perspective of your competitors, right? What are the strengths that you guys bring to the table? What's really powerful? What makes you different, right? What are your weaknesses? What's going to maybe get in the way of you getting a new piece of business? Maybe you don't have you're not, geographically diverse, or maybe your product mix is a little bit off. Whatever that is, right? Strengths, weaknesses. What are your opportunities out there going forward? What do they look like? What's possible? And of course, what's the threat? So it's a good time just to kind of do a little bit deep dive on your territory, on the people you compete against. What are they bringing to the table? All that stuff can be pretty valuable. Of course, growth potential, right? Who is the opportunity, maybe not now, but when we get out of this, for growth, right? Who is the person or people that you should be talking to? Do you have that list in front of you? Profit margins. I don't know about you guys, I sell more than one thing. You might sell 10 things. You might sell 100 things. Certain things you might be far more profitable on than others. Well, there's a saying out there in business, I think they say, cash is vanity, profit is sanity. We are going to need profit to get our businesses up and running. We're going to need to sell things that we can make some money on to get rid of some debt. Have you gone through your product offering, and maybe if you know this, what is more profitable for your company? What is less profitable? Have you done a matrix of the different products or services you sell, and maybe you can prioritize conversations that you're going to need to have with people either now or as we come out of this? What do you have, right? We also talked about new products or new sales pitches. I don't like the word pitches. I should have changed that. But just conversations that we could be having. So your professional behaviors, take some time, plan it out. It's a great exercise if you're part of a team and a group to get on your sales meeting and talk about, okay, guys, what are some of the things that we can bring to the table? What are some small things that we can maybe provide that don't cost a lot of money right now, but that can get people engaged with us, that can let them know that we bring some value? So these are some of the things that you'll want to be thinking about in terms of professional behavior. We talk about this a fair bit also, which is our care plan. We have these quadrants: keep, attain, recapture, and expand. I want to share a quick little story with you. I had a conversation not too long ago with a business owner. I was just doing a little check-in call with my network. And I was just saying, hey, Bill, how are things going right now? What's happening in your business? How are you feeling? I just wanted to talk and catch up with them. And we were just talking about salespeople. We got on that topic. And I said, hey, I'm just curious, the people who sell to you, what are they doing? Are they reaching out to you? What's happening? And I said, what about maybe your biggest vendor, the people that you buy the most from? Have you heard from them? Like, what's going on? And he paused for a second and he said, Chad, that's interesting that you asked that. He said, I have been buying over $1 million worth of product from this vendor for like the last 10 years. In fact, it's one of my biggest purchases in my business. And he said, you know what? I've been loyal. I've used them, everything. Like, they are the people I go to. He said, but I haven't heard one thing from my sales rep. I haven't heard anything. Nobody's reached out to me. And I said, can I ask you a question about that? And he said, yeah, sure. I said, what would happen if you got a call right now from their biggest competitor? Do you think you'd take the call? And you know what he said? He said, you know what? I think I would. Now is the time more than ever to be in touch with your current clients. You need to have a regimented process of reaching out, even if it's just calling, hey, just thinking about you, hope everything's okay. If it's that call alone, that can be worth something. If it's just a thank you call, a gratitude call, maybe you can give them something that's going to help their business. But if you have not run through your keep accounts, your current list, and you have not touched base with all of them more than once, you might be behind there. That could be an opportunity for you from a behavioral perspective. Now's the time. Call, reach out, leave a voicemail, do something, but don't ignore that. Your top 5 lowest wallet share clients. Maybe this is a good time to look at that in the expand bucket. Who do you sell stuff to that, you know what, they usually only buy like this much? Go through the list. Like, who do you have only a sliver of their business? You know, it's a great time to go back and reach out. So an exercise that we did here at Sandler, we just went through and put everything on a spreadsheet. Everybody we've sold stuff through in the last 5 years, and we just did a little spreadsheet on it. And what have we sold to people? Like, because we just want to create the focus to reach out and talk to people. So we created our spreadsheet, and then we can action that and go, oh, well, to company XYZ, man, we've only did this with them. How come we haven't talked about these other 3 things? Is there an opportunity there to talk about those 3 things? So now we have some actionable things, right? We looked at that. Top 5 former customers. Like, this is also why we did the customer list from 5 years ago. There's people we forgot about, right? We've all done this. We've been busy. We've been bringing on new accounts. And we've forgotten about people who did some stuff with us, but we haven't seen them in a long time. So a great place to go back and recapture. These are people who trusted you at some point. Maybe they're still around. Maybe you can rekindle that conversation, but definitely something that's possible to do. So don't forget, and of course the attain. These are people that you might want to do business with because they're in the right sector. That sector is still operating, and you can provide some value there. Could be a great time to reach out to those people. So we have a couple of Sandler rules, right? Number 1, you can't manage anything you can't control. We cannot manage COVID. We cannot manage the government. We can't manage when this is going to end. Can't manage any of that. All we can manage is our behavior. It's all behavior. And if you did 10 of something before, you might need to do 20 of it now. If you did 5, you might need to do 15, right? You just got to do the behaviors and commit. But don't forget the skill, right? That's the technique. So sales skills in the last 3 weeks. What's a skill that either you've developed, worked on, or has gone from number 8 on the list of importance to number 1 that's important for you? I want to see what you got up there. What are some skills that you maybe didn't have before? It was kind of at the bottom of the list, and now it's gone from number 8 to number 1. Somebody already put up their social media, right? The ability to put stuff out there. I think that's probably a skill. Some of you maybe objections right now. How are you dealing with that? How are you talking about these objections? Like when somebody says, yeah, we're not doing anything. How's your skill with that? I mean, maybe you weren't great at it before, and that's an opportunity. Video conferencing as a skill. I see Excel as a skill, getting better at that. How about phone skills? I see video conferencing skills up there. Absolutely. That's probably one we've all gotten way better on. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the video conference side. We've talked about that in some other webinars. Obviously having the right backgrounds, having the right lighting, that's the basic stuff. But still, the old phone, right? The ability to pick up a phone and talk to somebody and influence somebody using that is also a skill. And maybe you have used that, maybe you haven't. So questioning skills. I don't know if anybody's really worked with that, but how's your questioning strategy right now? Have you worked on any questions that you ask people? What are your top 5 questions that lead to discussions, right? Instead of going, hey, how's your business? How you doing? Probably not a great question, because what are people going to say? It sucks. life sucks, the world sucks, right? It's not a great opening question. What's a better question, right? We all have the opportunity to develop these, and I want us to be thinking about some of those things as we go into the latter half of the webinar. So I mentioned this already, controlling our tone. Right now, one of the big ways that we're going to create connections with people is if we're on a video call, well, we just still have some body language options, right? If you're not staring at that little black camera when you're talking to people, you're not making eye contact. If you're staring at yourself on the screen, which is usually our habit, again, we're not making eye contact. So we know that eye contact and body language is still important, right? That means if you're doing a video conference call, sit up straight, look engaged, write notes, right? They can see you writing notes. Write notes still, right? Write them down. They can see, hey, this person is engaged and they're listening. You're saying that without saying that. Real simple stuff. Of course, tone. How do we, we are not in the room, right? We know that if we're using a phone to have a conversation, it's really important that we slow down. We manage the volume, right? Inflection up and down. Softening statements are really important. Like, we really need to use tone to help create a connection with people. So if you're not sure what your tone sounds like, record yourself. Trust me, now more than ever you can. Zoom, you can record yourself. On your phone, you can record yourself. Listen. And a lot of times you might find that you're giving a message that you don't intend to send. Maybe it's a message of, oh, I'm down. Maybe it's a message of you're frustrated, but your tone can be totally messing you up. Have somebody listen to it, or have somebody, if you're at home, and there's another person in your house, like your spouse, significant other, maybe they can give you some feedback. That's really important. So don't forget your tone. Words that we use. Man, a lot of times we don't think about our words, right? What are we really saying? Wishy-washy words. Man, we got to be careful for those. We got to be careful when we get those and when we give them, right? Words that can have multiple meanings, like probably, maybe, hopefully, someday. Those are all wishy-washy words. What do they really mean, right? We're not really sure. Watch for the buzzwords. Again, we've talked about this in the past with companies. Words that you know what they mean, nobody else knows what they mean. Be careful with that. Mirroring, really important concept. Use words they use. This is really important to demonstrate listening. So if somebody says to you a specific set of words around, we're really struggling with, and you go, hey, so what I hear is there's a lot of struggle happening in your world, right? Using the same words creates a bond and connection. Now, the person on the other end of that phone call or Zoom meeting is not going to sit there and go, oh my God, they use the same word as me. This is amazing. But when you use the right words and you copy them back, what you'll find is the level of trust, the feeling of trust goes up, right? That feeling of connectedness goes up. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. We talk a lot about pain indicator terms, pain, problems they're having. Now, trust me, right now, there is a lot of pain out there. But is that pain you can solve, right? Listen for, man, we got to save money on this, or we really got to get a better process around this. Maybe those are pain indicators for you. Like, in other words, those are things you can help people with. You can go in and do something about that. So listen for those pain indicators. Don't be consumed with your own feelings and thoughts. You got to be ready to have this dialogue and this discussion. Questioning skills. I tell you, man, now is the time to ask better questions. I can't tell you how this happens. So a lot of times people will make a statement like, hey, you know what? Listen, we're gonna have to put, we can't buy anything right now. Like, we can't buy anything. So a great tactic right there might say is something like, Bill, hey, I understand, man, things are pretty crazy right now. When you say buy anything right now, is that like anything for the next 30 days? Or is that like, you guys are right now close to maybe shutting the doors and never coming back? I'm just curious when you say right now, right? So you can use a little reverse there. Or, maybe you're going to get a lot of pushback on margin right now. And maybe they'll say, hey, you know what? We can't pay you. We need you to give us a better price. Like if we're going to keep buying, we need a better price. What does better price mean? Does that mean 50% off? Does that mean 10% off? Does that mean delaying the terms? Does that mean stretching out payment? Does that mean, like, what does that mean? Right? So if they say, yeah, you know what, you need to give us a better price, you might say, hey, Bill, you know, can you help, like, better, you know, what do you need, right? What are you looking for when you say better? Like, you know, sometimes, you know, that means I just gotta, you know, would you be comfortable if we just stretch the terms out for 60 days versus 30, or whatever that is, right? Reversing is a skill. Reversing is something that we need to do when people say things that are maybe a little ambiguous. We don't really know what the words mean. We need to reverse them. So I've had people call me in the last little while, and they'll say things like, Chad, listen, we can we do anything different with our payments right now? I've had these calls, and I could say, yeah, we'll do this, but I don't know what they're thinking, and I don't know what they need, right? So like all of us, we all need some cash flow still coming in. We still need to be able to, you know, turn the lights on. So, you know, the question is, well, Bill, when you say, can we do anything different? Was there something that you were hoping we could do? Did you have something in mind? Right? So I just reversed it. I didn't answer it. I wanted to know what his perception is on what he could do, because I'm not going to project my feelings and beliefs about what's going on in his business, because I don't know. He might be in a good cash position. He might not. He might be on the verge of shutting the doors. He might not. I don't know. I just need to ask the question. So look for opportunities in your world to reverse people when they give you just like what I call wishy-washy, or like, you know, we don't know the impact of the word. We don't know why they've asked it. Reverse it. It's something that we can do. The other thing it's going to do for you is get you, you know, allow them to talk more, which is what we really want them to do. We want to talk more and learn more. So I want to see what we got out there. Some questions that we've got in our arsenal that we're using as salespeople that are really working, right? I want you to think about, what's a question that you use today, whether that's with a current customer, you know, somebody that you're trying to keep, maybe it's somebody that you're trying to expand. What is a great question that you've used that has led to a deeper discussion? Maybe it's led to having more, a better conversation with them. Maybe it's opened up dialogue around things you didn't even expect, right? So I want you to open that chat box up. I want you to, you know, give me some of these questions, and just fire them in there, and we'll see what some people are doing. I would say that, you know, one thing I would say is that you need some open-ended questions, right? Right now, if you're in your arsenal, we know what you know, the open-ended question, right? That's just like, you know, Bill, you know, when you look at your business right now, other than COVID, what is some of the challenges you're having, right? That's open-ended. I see one here. How has the virus affected your production lead times? That's another form of a question, right? So open-ended questions, you need to have some of those. Multiple choice questions. If I'm prospecting, I love a good multiple choice question. This is where I am not going to project my feelings and emotions on you. So if I'm talking to somebody that I've never talked to before, I might say, listen, Bill, do you mind if I ask you a question? So I get permission. I said, listen, when I'm talking to businesses in your sector, I'm getting a couple of different responses. In one response I'm getting is, listen, we're battening down the hatches. We're in full-blown crisis mode. We're just trying to keep the lights on. Really nothing, we're not really open to having a discussion about the future right now. But on the other hand, some people I'm talking to have, you know, they've already, you know, they've done all the crisis control stuff, and now they're thinking about the future, and they're actually open to having a bit of dialogue around what the future could look like. Which grouping are you in? So that multiple choice question, right? They can either choose to say, yeah, I'm in crisis mode, I don't want to talk to you. Or they might say, hey, yeah, I'm open to talking about the future, right? But they pick, right? They get to choose. It's a very powerful technique right now, instead of projecting your own thoughts and feelings on people. So make sure that you have a multiple choice question. Bad questions that are still out there. I always say, if you're on the used car business, the one I used to get when I'd walk on a car lot was, how do I get you in a car today? It's a terrible question. That's a closed-ended question. It makes me defensive. I make sure you have none of those types of questions in your repertoire where you're going, hey, how do we get you to give us a PO today? That's pretty tone deaf. I know that probably nobody's doing that version of a question, but sometimes the questions we are asking are not that good. They're just not that well thought out. How do I get a PO today? Not a great question. So think about it from the perspective of, what can we do for you? How can we help you? I think that's got to be your mindset right now. How do we help you? You need to think about, in terms of, another great question is the let's pretend. Let's pretend, if you put let's pretend in front of something, really lets you talk about the future without being, it's stuck in today. So if we said something like, hey, Sally, you know what, let's pretend we're out of this whole garbage that we're in right now, and, business is happening. What are some of the things that you're concerned about when in regards to, I don't know, X, or in regards to health and safety, in regards to your IT needs? Would you be open to having that conversation, right? So the let's pretend is a great little tool that you can use to help you with this. The third thing is the third party story with the question. I think that's really important. You want to make sure that you have a great little story. You can probably collect these throughout your organization where people are saying or doing things, people you're talking to, and sharing stories about what's really going on. You might say, Bill, I was talking to somebody else in your sector. This is what they shared with me. Yes, they were having some struggles, but business hadn't stopped, and there were still opportunities out there, and they were open to having that dialogue with us. Would you be in the same boat as them? Again, sharing a story. I mean, when we share stories about other people, it's not about the person we're talking to, and maybe we can have dialogue that we weren't having before. So, technique. If you're going to develop a technique, go back and look through the questions you're asking. Why are you asking them? What's the responses you're getting? And can you get better ones than you got? I think that's something really important right now that you think about, take some time to think about. So I just wanted to share this blown up view of the Sandler success triangle. We talked a little bit about attitude at the start of this webinar. We talked about, the body, the spirit, the mind. What are you doing to take care of that? Your organization, your market. Take some time to give yourself a rating on that, 1 to 10. Where's your mindset at? 10 being, you know what? Yes, you know that there's problems out there. You're realistic about what those issues are, but you're also going to take action. You believe that through action, you will get better results. You have that mindset. Look at your behaviors, right? We talk about goals, plans, and actions. You have to have a daily plan. You have to be time blocking off parts of your schedule in order to execute it. What's your short-term goals? What's your long-term goals? Do you have discipline right now? Do you not? How are you going to create discipline? So when you look at your behavior, give yourself that 1 to 10 rating, where you're at on your behavior. And then, of course, there's technique, right? Where are you at with your techniques in terms of selling skills? Where are you at in terms of having an email that gets responded to? Where are you at in terms of using the phone as a tool? Where are you at in terms of your questioning strategy? These are all techniques. So if you're, ask yourself, where are you on that scale 1 to 10? If you are not a 10, and I believe I'm always one of those people who believe there's always room for improvement, what are you going to do to get better? Is there a webinar you can jump on? Is there something you can listen to? Is there role playing that you could do with people inside your organization to get better? All opportunities. This is a time, well, we can look at it as a negative. It's also a time for massive opportunity for change. All of those changes that you've been afraid to make or had no time to make, we have the time, we have the opportunity. Now's the time. Are you going to do it or not do it? That's kind of up to you. So what do we have left here? There's a couple things I wanted to share with you as we end this webinar today. First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending, getting on the call. I really appreciate it. We will be making the version of this recorded. We will send it to everybody. So for those of you who might be on the call who still have some cash flow coming in and you have the time to get better, we have virtual Sandler foundations. So what does that mean? We have Sandler Online. It's a online self-directed sales, selling system that you would go through, and we would do 2 one-on-one hour coaching calls with you to help get you set up to make sure that you are executing on the information you're getting out of those calls, and we're happy to help you with that. So I know there's probably a few people on the call who actually still have some cash, can do that. Well, we want to help you if you are that person. A couple other free options, sales team assessment. If you're on this call and you're part of a team, or your leader's part of it, is on the call, you can go to our website at www.aon.sandler.com, and you can go on there and do a little sales assessment. We'll call you and do a 20-minute debrief with you. So there's that. My Sandler app. This is brand new. We just got this released, so we're pretty excited about it. We know that everybody's got apps on their phones. You use them all the time. So Sandler has released for the next couple of months free access to My Sandler app. You can go to our website to download it, or you can contact us directly. We'll walk you through. It's pretty simple. You'll get a special code. We'll unlock it for you, and then you can use it. There's video, there's audio, there's all kinds of stuff on there. So if part of your mental health is going for a walk, you can have My Sandler app on there, and you can listen to a podcast from Sandler while you walk around the block. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So we're at 11:56. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to take advantage of any of these opportunities that we're putting in front of you. And we hope we'll see you again. We have a webinar next Thursday on leadership and leading remotely. So thanks again for joining us.